In this edition of the Resilient Professional Podcast, we're going to talk about some very important lessons we can learn from our kids on the perception of time and how we can harness that lesson to improve our professional resilience and productivity. As well, we're going to talk about some very important points around fighting the dragon of professional stagnation. Welcome to the Resilient Professional Podcast. Professional success really is a game of inches. You have the experience and knowledge, but you realize that professional success is more than just knowledge and experience. It's actually applying what you already know. It's about consistently applying what you know in spite of the challenges that are sure to come your way. You know, Olympians know how to battle adversity and to perform at their best, even in the midst of setbacks and frustrations. I think we can learn a lot from the Olympian mindset. It really is about the cultivation of resiliency. Physical resiliency, emotional resiliency, relational resiliency, cognitive resiliency, resiliency in each aspect of our lives. On a regular basis, we'll unpack these ideas through guest speakers and podcast material that will take you to the next level of professional success. If you're a parent, and even if you're not a parent, you've observed parents, and you can relate to this for sure, it's natural for us to want to pass on our knowledge gained from our experiences and hoping our children can learn from our failures and mistakes. Then hopefully we'll keep them from painful lessons themselves. Ironically, there's a lot we can learn from our kids. Actually, kids and parents share a lot of the same priorities. Those priorities are security, they want lots of free time, and they want fun experiences that are free of stress. However, the big difference between adults and kids is the concept of time. For kids, time goes by so slowly. Look at your own past. Look at the time when you were a kid. Think back to when you were a kid during summer holidays. The time just seemed to crawl. It just went on, and some days were actually boring. It's hard to believe. We couldn't wait to go back to school. For adults, time just flies by. We have more on our plate, and it seems like less time to do it. In fact, the older we get, the faster the time flies. I'll never forget having a conversation with my grandmother. At the time, she was 94. And she just lamented, I can't understand, I can't believe how quickly the time's gone by since I graduated from normal school, which was teacher school at the time. And here she was, 94 years of age, and she was lamenting just how quickly time had passed. And even for her week, she would talk about all the things she'd have to get done and how quickly the time had passed. Well, in the last few podcasts, we've been talking about the practicing mind. And the practicing mind helps us to tap into and appreciate the precious time we have, the here and now. It allows us to take more conscious control of our time. Wouldn't it be cool to actually take control of our perception of time? And there are a lot of things we can do to change our perception of time, and they're very simple things. So first of all, just slow down. So when you're at work and you feel like you have to rush around to get things done, I'd encourage you to just take a chance. Just try out slowing down. Slow down your speed, be more methodical, like we've talked about in these previous podcasts. Try to be in the moment. That's one way you can change your perception of time. The other thing is when you start your day, disengage a little bit. Reflect on your day, reflect on what you have to do, reflect on your goals for the day, reflect on the things that you're grateful for, reflect on the important people of your life, maybe even pray for those people. And so by taking those little moments out of your day, you don't get caught up in the craziness that can often attach to our time and our day. Throughout your day, take little breaks. Take a break for 10 or 15 minutes. It's not going to have a do or die impact on your productivity through the day. And in fact, it's going to enhance your productivity. So take a walk. Go outside. Take a walk for 10 or 15 minutes. Pray for 10 or 15 minutes. Meditate for 10 or 15 minutes. Reflect on great literature for 10 or 15 or 20 minutes. And so by disengaging, slowing down, reflecting, praying, meditating, all these things will gradually help you to change your perception of time. And over time, you'll come to feel like you have the time to do everything that's important. Now let's talk about some things that we can do around the perception of time and its impact on our kids. I'll talk about our kids, if we have kids or if there are kids in our lives and we're playing a mentoring role. There's a way that you can talk about time that will be very helpful to them. And even though I'm using the example of kids, our children, I think the same thing applies to our spouses and to our employees or staff or coworkers. And that's where we talk about looking at the future, reflecting on the past, and using that future, past, present focus to really energize our day. Now, we can help our kids by reminding them of experiences in the past that created new understandings or represented accomplishment and growth. This helps them to drift to the observer self. Hey, do you remember that situation that came up at school? How do you feel about it now? What do you think you learned from it? Another question you can pose to your kids, if they want something here and now, why don't you say something like, well, maybe we'll wait a couple of weeks, and if you still want it, right, then we'll consider getting it. We're constantly teaching our kids through our attitudes and our actions. And if we're open to it, these are important lessons we can learn from our kids as well. We just need to be open to it and to check our ego at the door and understand that even the young ones around us can teach us a few things. And then finally, let's talk about skills and growing those skills. You know, there's one quote that I heard in the past, I'm not sure who I can attribute it to, but it's with deliberate and repeated effort, progress is inevitable. I remember one consultant saying, and usually the example of chopping down a tree. And this consultant was prolific. He was very well known for the amount of writing and books he had published in his discipline. And what he talked about was this concept that he kept in mind every single day. He called it swing the axe 5 times. And so he reminded himself every day, if he got nothing else done but swinging the axe 5 times, he would over time accomplish amazing things. And so the idea there is that if you have core activities or tasks that you need to do to get really big projects done, identify those projects, and no matter what happens in your day, make sure that you get those 5 things done every single day that you need to get done. At the end of a quarter, half a year, you'll be absolutely amazed at how much you've accomplished. He said, don't get involved in this, racing around for 2 or 3 days and not getting enough sleep and burning off hours and hours of work for 2 or 3 days in a row to get lots done, but then just flaming out. That's not a sustainable way of getting lots done and being productive over the long term. What you want to do is focus on what are those 1 or 2 or 3 activities that if you did them every single day consistently would have a meaningful, a measurable impact on your professional productivity. So for him, it was writing. And so he wanted to make sure no matter what happened, he wrote 5 pages every single day. And I think that's a really, really practical way of boosting our productivity. The other thing we need to keep in mind is that our skill levels are very dynamic. We work very hard in the early phases of our career to develop our professional skills. And as those skills develop, we typically, move through the ranks. We experience more and more professional success in the areas that we work in. But once we hit a certain level of success, it's very easy to take that skill level for granted. We begin to plateau a little bit. But the reality is there's no middle ground. There's no sort of plateau. You're either moving forward and improving your skills, or your skills are beginning to slide back. So as a resilient professional, you always need to be mindful of that. It's very easy to sort of slide into a little bit of self-confidence, a little bit of just taking for granted those skills that you have and how hard you had to work to earn them. But the other reality is you have to work hard to keep them. And so always make sure that you understand the dynamic nature of our skill levels. And as I've said in previous podcasts in this area, the way we develop our skill levels, the way we grow them is really to be really working on that present focus. What are the things I need to be doing right now to enhance those skill levels? For many of us, we're so distracted that we don't really experience the present. But the first time we do experience it, if we experience it for the first time, it's an amazing experience, being caught up in the moment. For most of us, we're caught between 2 filters. One filter is through the filter of anticipation, what the future will look like, and that comes with all kinds of emotions, both positive and negative. And the other filter is the filter of the past, what's happened in the past. And that, again, depending on our success or failures in various areas, can build and breed both positive and negative emotions. And always remember that as you embrace this present focus, you always hit moments of frustration, right? We live in a world of grades and image and marketing that constantly puts us off guard and gets us distracted. It's always in our face. It's all these images and messages about what the culture says is the ideal. And you need to really focus on what you think is the ideal. What are the ideal things in your life that will bring fulfillment? We can't always be allowing the messages of the popular culture to drive what that ideal is for us. Some of the ideal images and values that the culture is throwing at you might be very consistent with your core values, but don't take them in unconsciously. Make sure you're filtering them and making sure that any values that you take in are consistent with your own internal compass. It's important that we strive to reinforce as well the habits that will lead to professional success. We've talked about this before. And we need to take stock of the values we're embracing. So often it's the external values of houses, bigger homes, jobs, more professional income, could be cars, the stuff of life. But really the true value that we bring to the table professionally is found in relationships and our ability to work with other people. It's the ability to extend love and compassion and encouragement. It's about improving character qualities like perseverance and patience, to be gracious, to practice the art of civility, the art of hospitality, to be hardworking, to show up on time, to be respectful. Those are really important internal character qualities to work on, and they have a profound impact on our professional success. So ultimately, we come into the world with our true self, and we exit this world with our true self. The challenge is to always be aware of what our true self is saying to us, and to set direction and develop our abilities in a way that's consistent with our true self. And we've talked about it before. We need to spend time reflecting, going for walks, prayer, meditation, journaling are all ways that we can tap into our true self, to listen to that voice within us that's prompting us to do the things that are in line, that are consistent with our abilities and our gifts and the true purpose that our true self is calling us to. This is going to sound very old-fashioned, but ultimately we should be somewhat aware and conscious of the things that we consume, the information we consume, the stuff that we watch, the relationships that we have, our work environments, all can have either a positive or negative effect on our true self and the degree of life satisfaction that we're going to experience. As much as possible, take an inventory of those things in your life that create a sense of well-being, a sense of fulfillment, enrichment. And also take an inventory of people and things and places and activities that do the opposite of that for you. And over time, begin to reflect and develop a very specific plan that lead to greater enrichment in your life. And try to find ways of decreasing those things that drag you down. Well, that concludes this edition of the Resilient Professional Podcast. Hope you enjoy the content. If you enjoyed this content, then I would encourage you to take a look at the Resilient Professional ebook. 15 chapters of great content that will go a long way to enhancing your professional and personal resiliency. And go to the landing page for the ebook, and you'll find that you can download the free PDF of the first chapter. If you enjoy that chapter, then go into the Learning tab to download the complete 15-chapter book. As well, make sure you go to the show notes for this particular podcast, where you can download a free PDF of all the comments and show transcripts. All the best as you pursue professional and personal resiliency.